Hello everyone, and welcome back to Warships Blitz with Terry. Today, since there's still a bit of a lull in the release of deluges of new ships, and because I've got some footage that I had recorded while I was on holiday, I am looking at a somewhat older premium. This is the USS West Virginia. Now, if you've been around in the game for a while, you probably remember the somewhat infamous incident where a decision was made to give returning players a free West Virginia, which led to the Great West Virginia Turkey Shoot, because you ended up having a lot of people who either hadn't played at all or hadn't played just for a really long time, suddenly appearing in Tier 7 battles in the West Virginia, sailing straight ahead, with predictable results. So since then, it's somewhat been engraved in my memory that the West Virginia was a little bit of a noob ship, and I think that's a big disservice to the ship. So I've decided finally it's about time to take a look at this one. So the USS West Virginia, that was a Colorado class battleship, so a sister ship of the Colorado, and as such built in the 1920s. Which means by the time Second World War broke out, she was somewhat outdated. There were a lot of plans in the interwar period to actually modernize the ship, like, give it better AA, give her torpedo bulges, all these kind of things, but it really never happened, which means that at the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor, the West Virginia was struck, I think, by 2 bombs and a bunch of torpedoes. She didn't capsize, but the infamous, if you've seen all the movies, the infamous scene happened where I think it was a mess attendant, called Miller, who was a cook pretty much, went on to man one of the AA guns and defended the ship from the conning tower while the whole thing was burning and under attack. Well, the West Virginia wasn't completely destroyed, but certainly very much disabled. So they finally decided to give her a bit of a refit. And that's probably an understatement. So she did get the torpedo bulges, she did get better AA with dual-purpose guns, and she did get a pretty much completely new superstructure. So after that, at a long break, she actually made it back into action to take part in the Battle of Leyte in the Philippines, and was in the last battleship-on-battleship action of the war, which was taking on the Southern Force, and I think she was fighting the Fuso's sister ship Yamashiro, if I'm not mistaken. That did not go so well for the Japanese, and they very very quickly turned tail and were defeated. And that was the Southern action, not the Taffy 3 action in the center or the carrier chase in the north. Then after that, she was still present during the surrender of Japan, and then was ferrying soldiers back to the US, was placed in reserve, and in the 1960s broken up for scrap, unfortunately. So that was the USS West Virginia, and that's what we have here in game, which I think, by the looks of it, and I'm going to switch the port quickly over. I was staying on the Hawaii port, but I'm going to switch it quickly over to the workshop port. But people have been asking me, where do you get this port? I have no idea. It was given to me, right? I don't know where it came from. What it allows me to do, however, is to show you the hull a little bit better. So you can very clearly see the torpedo bulges on the sides here. And given that she took several torpedo hits below the armor belt, and almost capsized from the damage caused by that, that's certainly a good thing. Other than that, yes, we have the somewhat more modern superstructure that was rebuilt after the bombing had very much devastated that. So, how does the West Virginia compare to the Colorado? Which is the obvious question we need to ask. Now, the American battleship main line, at least the Montana line, but at this point there's no split yet, is very much focused on reload. The premiums, there are a couple which are focused more on precise aiming. For example, the I think it's the Alabama that is having the precise aim as well. But that's tier 8. So here, tier 7, the West Virginia gets 3 precise aim 1, which gives you better accuracy, but she loses the rapid reload in return. She does have a pretty comparable hull. She does get a little bit better torpedo damage reduction. It would have served well earlier on. And she does get a better fire and flooding resistance, probably just, from the rebuild, if you wanted to justify it. She, interestingly enough, is more maneuverable than the Colorado, which I don't know actually if the Colorado model has the same torpedo protection or not, but there doesn't always have to be a reason for these things. She is definitely more maneuverable than the Colorado. The guns are completely the same, and the secondaries are different, and that's again from the rebuild. So these are the dual purpose 127mm secondaries in twin turrets. They do a bit more damage, they rotate faster, but the rest is pretty much the same. The AA, however, is better, and this is probably where the 127s come in as dual purpose guns. The large caliber AA does more. Now, she's still not an AA monster, but she can, to a degree, defend herself a little bit. If she's alone and coming under concentrated carrier attack, especially from tier 8 carriers, you won't really see the impact too much, but at tier 7 or especially tier 6, you can shoot a fair few of airplanes down. And the concealment is again very comparable. So we do have a tier 7, a premium Colorado, and the main difference is the precise aim over the rapid reload and somewhat better AA. So it's not quite a black ship, but it's definitely an improvement. Now you get to pick the typical American elite bonus. You can either get range on the main guns or better fire and flooding resistance. She does have better fire flooding resistance at the base with 17.5%, but I think it would be still questionable to do a fire flooding resistance build with this thing. You could maybe if you wanted to play it purely as a long-range gunnery platform, but I would generally recommend using the main battery firing range here. Which brings us to the equipment. Again, there you get the American Special module for slot 1, which is the artillery plotting room, which gives you increased range on the main battery and on the secondaries, but that's not super important. It's the main battery that we're really looking at. Other than that, again, a typical battleship build, specifically that she actually has a pretty good maneuverability. It's worth taking the steering gear. I don't really think with 17.5% base that it would make sense to ever go for something like a fire flooding tank build. Maybe if you wanted to play exclusively at long range. But then again, these are the Colorado's guns. They are not known for their precision, even with the precise aim on. They're obviously better with the skill enabled than without, but they're still not the most precise guns out there. Which brings us to the camouflage. That is just your typical battleship camouflage if you want to get the historical for it, which gives you hit points, again range, better dispersion, and the torpedo damage reduction as well. And with all that, we're ending up with an 11-second turn time, which is very, very good for a battleship. And we have a 15-kilometer range on the 406mm main guns. There are only 8 of them, but they are relatively large caliber, and they do hit reasonably hard. So all in all, not bad guns. The armor on these things, and I haven't looked up the values for the West Virginia, but I would assume it's similar to the Colorado. The belt armor is pretty good. The deck armor, not so much on the mid-tier American battleships. It tends to be on the thinner side in these ships. And yeah, the AA, like I mentioned, and you get a 6-kilometer range on the secondaries, which is not terrible, and they actually do a little bit of damage. Which brings us to the commander. Now, here is kind of where the problem comes in, because while everything else is sort of your standard build at tier 7 or level 7 or however you want to call it, you generally do want the fully prepared on the American main line, whereas here you would go for the marksman skill. Now, what you can do is use a commander from the Vermont line, because these things also have have precise aim. But then again, you would have to build for defensive AA, which means you would probably forego some skills around here. The other alternative, if you do have, and let me quickly, I'm not sure if the Florida did get precise. Yes, the Florida gets precise aim as well. So you've got one of these, and if you include tier 8 premiums, let's see, if you include the Alabama, she gets the precise aim too. Can't remember with the Massachusetts. Yeah, Massachusetts also gets the precise aim. So there are fair few if you are into American premium battleships. There are a fair few on the premium line, even in the lower tiers, that do get the precise aim. Otherwise, you can bring a commander around from the Vermont line if you are inclined to go there. So it's not like a complete custom build just for that one ship. It's definitely something where you can bring a commander from an existing commander and use it for commander training. You would obviously down the road want the armor-piercing cap shell and pretty much definitely the horizontal protection on these things. Well, so standard class battleship, not very fast. That is kind of the one problem that these things have, which makes gameplay in the Colorado always a bit challenging because you need to be very careful with your positioning. I still kind of like to position myself in such a way in the West Virginia, because these ships are very slow. You can't easily say like run a flank or something. You have to watch where you have to make sure that you're staying within effective range. And this is actually something that's easier in the West Virginia than in the Colorado. In return, you don't quite have the burst damage that you have on the Colorado, which makes it less of a close range effective ship. But it's the trade-off. So let's get into some games, and we will see how she handles. The first battle is a tier 8 game, but there's only one tier 8 on the enemy team, that's the Ochakov. We're up against Lyon, Ashitaka, Ochakov, New Orleans, Mayan, Akatsuki, and Jervis on Fire's Lantern, on Domination. I like Fire's Lantern. It's a nice map, and it's got some good concealment spots for some interesting gameplay. Now, you could be tempted to say, okay, so we have a sniper Colorado with 15-kilometer range and everything. You see, the thing is, you're still in tier 7. And in tier 7, you often have to compensate for your team doing silly things. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because in the Colorado, you kind of have to get close to make things happen because of the shotgun nature of the whole thing. In the West Virginia, you technically don't, because you do have the long-range accuracy, although the shells are a bit on the slow end, and for smaller targets, it can be a bit frustrating to shoot at them at long range, but you do have the range. Like, you can see it here. Right? I could stay right here, where I am, and cover the whole of ACAP. The problem is, I have no idea if my team is even going for the capture circle. So we do have a Mayan and Brooklyn here with us. And it looks like the Mayan might be going for A, but we don't know yet what kind of opposition we'll be facing. At least the Brooklyn is probably somewhat useful against enemy destroyers, or so you would hope. Again, it's mid-tier, and you don't really know what's going on. Which means I am actually moving forward. Even though range-wise, I could probably cover the capture circle already. It's I don't know what the Mayan is shooting at. Maybe he's trying to see if he gets spotted. But no one's contesting the cap just yet. Okay, so there's the Lyon. That's the first target, and the New Orleans. I'm going to start targeting the New Orleans because that is the bigger threat for the Brooklyn and for the Mayan, especially the Mayan. And if I can take that one, down, or at least cause sufficient damage, then that'll deter him from threatening our destroyer. Now there are three enemy destroyers. There's the Jervis. He was just smoking, so there are probably torpedoes in the water, and there are two destroyers on the left. So lots of torpedoes coming in, flooding ACAP, which means I am already going to have to slow down and start dodging the soup that is incoming. Yep, these would be the Jervis's torpedoes. It's interesting to see that the Jervis is firing a widespread. Now, he was firing at long range, so that doesn't not get quite indicative, but it's something to keep in mind. And while we are hammering that Lyon into submission, our Brooklyn has decided that it's way too much opposition out there. And to be fair, there is a Lyon in New Orleans, so the Lyon is probably going to die to torpedoes over there just now, if the Mayan has anything to do about it. That would be ideal. No, it looks like he appears to have missed. So we've got the Akatsuki on the left, we've got the Jervis on the right, and we've still got that New Orleans over there. So I do need to kind of make my way into the capture circle after finishing off the Lyon. And again, dodge the torpedoes. Yeah, Brooklyn, there's a Jervis right there. Would you mind? You've got sonar. Would you mind? Maybe? Okay, so there come the Akatsuki torpedoes. There come the Jervis torpedoes. So he does not know how to use single spread, which is a good information to have. Let's keep concentrating fire on the New Orleans, because he is the biggest threat for our Brooklyn. We do have a Nagato here who is in this position, hopefully able to do something about the New Orleans as well. And both of the destroyers have just launched their torpedoes, but we are concentrating all our team here around A-caps. So it's if it wasn't for the fact that two of the enemy battleships have already YOLO'd, they'd be ahead on points at this point. But we are retaking A, and again the New Orleans is the primary target here. But it would be really lovely if that Brooklyn could do something about the Jervis on the side, rather than trying to focus down the New Orleans. New Orleans takes out the Benson, and it looks like I'm going to have to do it myself. So let's help the Brooklyn with the New Orleans, so he's no longer distracted and can finally do what he needs to do, and then switch over to the... Really? Really? Okay, Brooklyn can take it from here. Switch over to the high explosive. We are on full hit points, so that's why I was triggering the heal earlier. And we're now having to deal with an Akatsuki and with a Jervis. The Nagato over there decides that he no longer wants to participate in the battle. I know where the Jervis is. Yep, there he is. And I also know that this guy is not firing single torps generally. I'm not going to be able to take him down in his approach, but this is where there come the Akatsuki's predictable torpedoes. This is where the West Virginia's maneuverability comes in, because now I can do that, and his spread is completely misaligned because he hasn't anticipated that I know how to actually turn the ship around. Which means I only take one of these torpedoes, yeah. Okay, so he's out now, but that Akatsuki probably isn't. So Akatsuki's backing off outside, he will have fire torpedoes. I have to dodge the torpedoes from the left as well, that is done. But I'm going to move forward now, which means I'm probably going to take a bunch of Akatsuki torpedoes, but I have got the hit points to spare. And I want to keep the pressure on and make sure the Jervis stays detected, although he is using his guns. I've got a heal ready, and I've got a Damakon ready, so I can take a torpedo salvo from the Akatsuki, which, if that means I can keep pressure onto the Jervis. Let's trigger the heal early, just so he can start already taking effect. Then Damakon the Flood. The third torpedo wave hits, but the Flood has the Damakon's active, and the Jervis. Now I have to kill the Jervis, because the way he's running on now, I don't think he can miss at this point. I am already reversing, but my secondaries take him down, which gives me the close quarters combat. There is still an Akatsuki over there somewhere, but I'm no longer spotted, so I think the Akatsuki has given up on trying to come around this corner, and the enemy team has literally run out of players at this point, lost all the capture circles. And it's just a cleanup operation right now. So, like I said, it is technically a long-range ship, but you are in tier... Oh, there's the Akatsuki, went the long way around. Okay, Brooklyn. You have literally nothing else to do. Can you please kill the destroyer? Do what you're paid for. It is technically... Look, I'll help, right? While it is technically a long-range ship, you often do need to sort of compensate for your team and make things happen, because otherwise things don't necessarily happen. So in that regard, while she has the capability of fighting at longer ranges more effectively, which is much welcome, I'm also somewhat missing the improved firing rate on the Colorado. So while we're just finishing off that Ochakov over there, and Brooklyn chases down the Akatsuki. It's a double-edged sword, really, a little bit. But if you were to play, say, in a division, that might be a different story, and you can use more, and dispersion if the precise aim isn't up, really isn't happening. You can he takes the Fiji down still. What was I saying? Yeah. So if you're playing in randoms, then you might just have to play more similar to what you would play in a Colorado, just out of expediency for how your team's playing. Whereas if you were playing in say a division and you could concentrate more on long range fire, that would also be something. But don't underestimate this thing, even at close range, even without the rapid reload. You can still do a significant amount of damage, and the secondaries aren't bad. The second round is another domination on Southern Archipelago, and we are top tier this time, but it's a 5v5. No destroyers, which is much welcome. We're fighting Nelson, Colorado, New Mexico, Brooklyn, and Fiji. There is a carrier, but it's a bot carrier, so while we might come under air attack, it's nowhere near as dangerous as actual player air attack. Like I said, the AA is pretty good, but it's if you come under concentrated air attack by, say, by a tier 8 carrier, you're not really going to be able to defend yourself on your own, which again makes if you're bottom tier, makes the long range improvements over the Colorado actually quite useful. So there is an Akatsuki over at C-Cup, that is ours, so I'm going to follow this one. I shouldn't have too bad of a game, because unless he tries to take on the Brooklyn or the Fiji, he's got 3 enemy battleships to torpedo, and he's in an Akatsuki, so he should be able to outspot pretty much everything and just stay undetected. That is, he knows how to play it, so how to play it stealth destroys. But it's good to see people going for the Cap, and the Akatsuki goes for Scout, and there is something in D-Cup, that's probably the bot destroyer. No, actually, nope, negative, that's the Brooklyn. So Brooklyn, dangerous for my Akatsuki. Now, if he knows what's good for him, he's going to stay undetected. I'm going to get a couple shots out at the Brooklyn. Yeah, one hit. See that this is sort of the problem, Akatsuki. What are you doing? Why are you rushing a Brooklyn? Okay, I no longer have an Akatsuki, but I can try to give a little bit of fire support against the Brooklyn. It takes the shells a little bit to get there, and it can be a little hard to actually make anything happen. I'm not sure what that was, but the Akatsuki just got blapped in the side pretty comprehensively. That might actually have been also the battleship on the other side. A bot carrier is targeting me because I was the first one spotted, which was one reason why I was opening up as well, which is to just attract the attention of the bot carrier and not have the dive bombers go after the Akatsuki. But so far we haven't been able to do an awful lot. We're just scoring overpens at the Brooklyn there. See, that's the problem with long-range gunnery, but that Akatsuki is pretty much out of the game at this point, unless he goes undetected and makes himself useful elsewhere. So, hello Mr. Brooklyn, I have improved fire and flooding detection, and you have only 4% fire chance. So of course he scores an insta-fire. I don't want to let that one burn. I've still got 3 heals. And I do have another... No, it's an Algerie, actually. I thought I had a battleship. So Algerie should be somewhat effective against the Brooklyn. And I do have a Colorado shooting at me at long range. Now, at long range, I should have the upper hand against the Colorado, because I have a precise aim. And even though it's just a precise aim 1, it should somewhat help with dealing damage. But and especially if my Akatsuki is committing suicide, that's fine. I never thought he's been useful to spot and take the first cap. That's pretty much been it. Okay, I'll help out. The Algerie seems to be struggling against the Brooklyn, so I'll help out there a little bit and see if we can reduce the number of guns shooting back at us. And all the same, trying to keep and here comes the positioning, trying to keep the Colorado out of D-Cup. Now we're holding 3 of the capture circles, even though we're down 2 destroyers. We are holding 3 of the caps, which is good. We do have the points income, and that's an ex-Brooklyn. Okay, so that one's down, which only leaves the Colorado. But as long as we can keep the Colorado outside the capture circle, and the Colorado is making a positioning mistake. He's got the same speed as me, 21 knots. But look at where he's positioning. He's all the way at the map border. So he's going to struggle being impactful on the other side of the map. Now I am getting crossfired here, and I am obviously still coming under carrier attack. Well, better me than the Algerie. I can probably take it. Especially that the Colorado is now fighting the Algerie. And Algerie is firing armor piercing at him for some reason. I'm not sure why he would do that, but okay. And I can just keep citadeling the Colorado from over here and give some fire support. But there is also a New Mexico over there. So again, it's about the tactical play here at this point. I am close enough that I can... Okay, I'm going to get one more salvo onto the Colorado, but hopefully the Algerie can just... Ow, yeah, that thing can hurt me in return. Hopefully the Algerie can just take him from here, because I'm still coming under carrier attack, but it's the bot carrier, it's target by proximity. And that is a full health New Mexico and a Fiji over there on the other side. Double fire, yeah, I'm going to damage on that, because the carrier torpedo drops are going to be... Is that sitting still, that Fiji? No, he's reversing. Let's see if we can finish off the Fiji, that would be great. One hit is not going to do it, that was a semi-pen. But yeah, I've only got 17,000 hit points left, and I'm now going to have to deal with the New Mexico. And there's also a full health Nelson over there. Algerie isn't making any progress in killing the Colorado, but we're holding the capture circles. That's what I care about. So it's all about keeping the New Mexico occupied over here. And the Algerie is next to me, so even though I am low on hit points, let's see what I can do here. Crossing the T of the New Mexico, and hoping that he donks into my bow, not into my bow, into my belt. Because that should be able to tank the New Mexico's guns even at this range, rather than at the deck. So we'll try to get some deck hits onto the New Mexico. Deck is relatively weak, but it looks like we don't have any luck with the Citadels just yet. And as long as I can keep him such that he can only get his forward gun turrets on target, that is actually... I might get... I don't think I'll get out of this, but I have a heal coming up. And... that'll give me, as long as the Nelson doesn't join in the fun, really still no Citadels, we might still be able to get the New Mexico down. There's some more planes coming in, and this was my last heal, so I'm on 6,000 health. This is all the health I'm going to have. Algerie is helping from the rear, and again, this is why I'm sitting here, doing my level best to tank and that's it. Okay, I wasted that salvo because Algerie just took him out. Nicely done. And these 570 hit points is all I'm ever going to get. Let's see if we can do a little bit more damage against the Nelson, who's giving me a nice flat broadside over there, while sitting still and being otherwise occupied. But we've held 3 capture circles for a long time, and the enemy... I think the enemy Colorado is still alive. Yeah, he's behind me, so I'm dead. Either the Colorado or the Nelson's going to kill me. But you see what I mean with the positioning mistake, right? You're on 21 knots. If you make it all the way out to the map border... it's going to take you the rest of the battle to get back into the action. So even though I've died here, we have managed to defend DCAP and almost still taken the Nelson down in the process. And that Colorado, the Algerie is doing the right thing, right? The Colorado is ineffective. There's absolutely nothing he can do. He's not going to even make it back into the capture circle in time by sailing so far out. And that's what I mean with these standard class battleships. You do need to position yourself in such a way that you don't need to move around an awful lot. So West Virginia, is it a good ship? It's not a bad ship, actually. It can be a fun ship. It's you have a bit of a trade-off between this and Colorado by being slightly more range focused than Colorado's more reload focused. But you've got the improved AA, which can do a decent amount, can shoot a decent amount of planes down if you come under carrier attack. And it's one of those ships that's got a lot of history. It's definitely an improvement over the Colorado stats wise in most regards. Especially on the AA and the maneuverability, which allows her to play a bit more aggressive. You've got the range and the precise aim. You do miss the rapid reload, but I think it's a good ship to have, especially if you're collecting American premium battleships or going down the Vermont line, because you can always use it as a captain trainer, and it's a fun ship to play. So that's that. And that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.